At the end of my presentation, I'm going to say very briefly in summary what I said. I'll say it in Spanish. Al final de mis comentarios voy a decir lo que dije en inglés en general en español, para que todos puedan entender lo que se está diciendo. In terms of supporting the bill itself, first of all, Lonnie is a wonderful woman and a wonderful legislator. She asked me personally to support it. It's not something that I had given much thought to. Obviously, I went through the system myself, and I'll explain that in a minute. But I just hadn't, I just assumed these are the rules you play by. This is how it works, and so I did it. That's how I got here. But in talking to her and in looking at the data, particularly the experience in Arizona, I was impressed with the growth in the number of candidates who filed for office and went through this system as opposed to through the system that we have in California, that large contribution model, for lack of a better term. So I was impressed by that. I was impressed by the fee on the lobbyists. Obviously, politicians aren't very popular. Lobbyists are even less popular. So I was okay with putting a fee on them. But I'll tell you, the lobbyists really put a full court press on this. They didn't like the fee at all. They didn't like the idea that they would be singled out. They didn't like the idea that it wasn't the dollar amount so much as the precedent that somehow they were responsible, or they were somehow the bad guys, and therefore had to be punished by paying this fee to make this system work. Frankly, it's really simple. It's just they've never been taxed before, and you all see the way the budget is right now. There aren't a whole lot of sources of revenue that we have where it's really black and white. It's really clear, that not a lot of people are sympathetic toward lobbyists, so you tax them, and not a lot of folks would complain about it. If I was trying to tax doctors or hospitals or something that people actually care about, we'd have a hell of a time doing that. So I like that component of it. And then finally, for the legislature currently, the maximum contribution is $3,900. That's what it is today. That is a lot of money. When you think about the median income in California, when you think about what day-to-day people are doing just to survive, when you think about communities like the one I represent, working class, overwhelmingly Latino district, where people are just really struggling to survive. They're not going to make $3,900 contributions. And so, their cars aren't even worth $3,900 in a lot of cases. So you have that kind of discrepancy, a system that is predicated on large contributions, and then you have the people who are being represented who don't have the resources to engage in that part of the process. So those were the reasons why I did it. I am not one that automatically presumes that because you take contributions, you're beholden to those special interests. I always like to say, there are two sayings on this. One of them is just unreasonable. I won't say that one. That's a little harsher. I use one from Sam Rayburn, who was a congressman from Texas in the 50s and 60s. And Rayburn said, you take their money and you kick them in the ass every once in a while. And that's kind of the model I try to follow. And the logic behind it is, in the current system, there's a finite pool of money from all the different special interests. And they're going to give it as they see fit. If you're able to get some of it, that just means that somebody else is not going to get it. In my case, I'd much rather take it as a Democrat than give it to a Republican. And so I'm okay with that part of it within the current system. But again, That doesn't mean I'm blind to the weaknesses of the current system, and that's why I supported the legislation. The issue of special interests is very important up in Sacramento because they're there every day. They have lobbyists, they have contributions that they make, they have a whole infrastructure that is set up for them to have access. Unfortunately, especially in the first 9 months of the year when we're in Sacramento 4 days out of the week, we don't get a whole lot of time in our districts. I'm in my district on Fridays, Thursday afternoons, Fridays, and Saturdays. I don't do stuff on Sundays, political stuff. So that really narrows your opportunity to interact with your community, unless there's some event or something on Saturday you can go to. But those lobbyists and the folks who make the contributions, they have access all the time. Again, I don't believe it's entirely corrosive, but I do believe it's unfair. And that's, I think, a little different nuance on the power of this money in the system. And then I'll close with this concept. I was on the city council in Southgate for 8 years before I was elected to the Assembly, and I've been there now 5 years. My first campaign for city council, I raised $10,000 from family, friends. I scraped it together. I threw in some money as well. $10,000 to run citywide in a city of 100,000 people. The second time, and Southgate's a special case because we had a little corruption and some weird stuff going on. And there was the matter of the other guy named Hector Torre who ran against me. But the second time when I ran for re-election in Southgate, it was $35,000. And then when I ran for Assembly in the Democratic primary 5 years ago, I raised $350,000. So you see the scales that we're talking about here as you kind of move up the line. And I'll close with this idea. President Obama did a phenomenal job of getting small contributions. But between the primary and the general, he raised over $500 million. $500 million. That is an obscene amount of money. When you think about what you can do with that kind of money to help society in a very tangible way, all these great groups that are here, organizations that provide services, healthcare, social services, etc. I mean, $500 million would do a world of good. It would do a world of good in the California state budget. It's just this arms race. It's like Russia and the U.S. in the Cold War. And we need to tamp it down somehow. And that's why I supported it. That's why I'm supporting it next year. That's why I've written op-eds in support of it and will continue to support it. Because this has to change. We cannot keep going down this path. It's unsustainable. I was going to say, muy brevemente en español. Los costos de las campañas han aumentado tremendamente. El presidente Obama gastó más de 500 mil millones de dólares. Es una cantidad tremenda. Ese dinero se podría usar para algo mucho mejor, pero desgraciadamente las campañas cuestan tanto que se tienen que conseguir esas contribuciones para poder hacer una campaña. Así es el sistema que tenemos. Yo como concejal recaudé $10,000